Oh, just 1 second here, guys. Just making sure my internet is looking good. Wait, made it. We're busy making dinner, and I'd been outside planting a bunch of things. But yeah, okay. So the plan today, what we are gonna do in live video today. Ian is gonna pop back in a second. He's just checking the stand. But we're gonna do questions. We don't really. Oh, Ian is wandering back with cash. We're pretty quickly going to get to questions. And so the best way for me to be able to see your questions during the live chat here is if you put Ian just has a mountain of cash. Are you gonna I'm gonna show this mountain of cash? Sorry. Okay, so the best way for you guys to put the questions so I can see it is if you put them in capitals. Ian went cash collecting. Oh no, it's broken. Broken money, Ian.
That's okay. The bank still takes it.
Okay. Yes. Okay, sorry. Okay. Let's get focused here. What are we doing? We got a live video. Okay, so we're doing questions. If you have a question, put it in capitals and then I can see it. And then we'll just get to it. But I'm assuming Ian probably wants to say something about the video that he's making.
Oh yeah, we did a video.
Are you gonna spoil?
I don't know how much they spoiled.
Probably not at all. The video that we're working on, bad things happen.
Ooh.
Drama.
Yeah, I don't think I'll spoil the bad things. I'll let the title of the video spoil the bad things. We have like a little bit of a content strategy this year where we're kind of like, we're almost like putting some videos, like maybe once a month, like a really, really ultimate effort, 100% everything perfect video. The last one we did was like the
Are you implying that our other videos aren't ultimate effort?
No, but we are trying to be more efficient in our process so we can kick out the content a little bit more. And so, like the Mother's Day video that we did, that was like, it takes as long as it takes, it's got to be perfect. Because, like, you can get it to 95% and then you can spend that, like 20 more hours getting that last 5% perfection. It just takes a long time to get everything exact. And this video is going to be another one of those, like 100% perfect, really amazing videos. And, from the editing side of things that I do, this video is like one of my like accomplishments that I'm most proud of. I think it's like a really, really good video. We go like on a little road trip, and so it's kind of like a fun.
Are you spoiling it right now?
I'm spoiling the road trip. And then we we still go to a market and stuff like that. So yeah, it should be coming out really soon. It's done.
No, it's not done. We still need to finish it, and then we need to do some other stuff to it. So Thursday or Friday. Yeah,
like it has to go through some of the cycle stuff that we do with it, but it's almost done. The editing is almost done, and all the tough parts are taken care of. So
yeah,
you guys should definitely check it out and repost it on your Facebook or tell your friends to go see it. Admission is free.
And we're also talking about maybe making a video this week to go out really quickly about like putting together a big decadent bouquet. So I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. Poll. live poll. Should we bother to film this video that we're talking about filming tonight about building a big, massive bouquet? Because I have lots of flowers that I could use up, and I feel like the table could use a big, oversized bouquet.
Those that phlox that you have, that purple phlox.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Is really nice. I got some rice on the stove.
Okay.
That I have to go check.
Give the other thing a stir too.
Okay.
Okay, and then we got a question, so we can get to it. All right, let's see. So, how are Floracell going? And the answer to that is Floracell are going very poorly because we haven't tried to sell anything to a florist yet. So the first thing in the season that we have is our tulips, and the tulips they just cost a lot of money. So it's really hard for us to sell them for less than $2 a stem and still to make any money. You know, in a way they are a little bit of a loss leader. They're basically something that we sell at wholesale prices to our retail customers, just so that we can have something at that time of year. So because of that was, we'll never buy enough to sell wholesale on the tulips. And then okay, sorry, I'm gonna pause the chat here so that I can get to everyone's questions. And then the ranunculus was what came up next, and we had a horrible go of it with the ranunculus. They just, they didn't really produce. They weren't florist quality. They weren't, tall enough and big enough and beautiful enough because the heat really affected them. We were talking about selling anemones to florists, and then I didn't get like any anemone blooms. The crop was like a total failure. And since then we've kind of just been scrambling to have things to be able to sell at all to in the roadside stand. Our number one priority is to keep the roadside stand stocked. And then after that, the next priority is to get down to the farmer's market. And so far we've only really had enough flowers to be able to do that. So we haven't tried to do any florist sales yet. But the farmers markets have been not doing great. Our sales at the farmers market are down about 40% this year. So it would make sense to start putting some energy towards trying to build that florist customer. We have enough. So we've had a bunch of crop failures, like stuff that it was like, oh, we'll be able to sell this florist. We planted all those like thousands and thousands of Lysianthus because we were gonna try to be selling those to florists. And those aren't going to be florist grade stems. The stems are going to bloom really short. So I'll be able to use them in my bouquets. I'll be able to do stuff with them, but they won't be of the standard that florists expect. So I won't be able to sell that. But yeah, we are starting to come into some stuff that I would be able to sell. We have like some grass. We have like some millets that are blooming that I was like, oh yeah, like this, this I can pick lots of. It's not going to be long till we have cosmos and we have zinnias. Florists, I don't know if they want zinnias. I guess worth a try. But we have some stuff. We have some stuff coming. So, step one is that we need to get ourselves organized. We need to make ourselves like a weekly price list of what is available for florists, and then we need to start networking and contacting florists, and any work that we can do this year towards building relationships will be good for in the years to come, because I do think that the florists are going to be a good source of ways to sell flowers for us. Okay, let's see. Flicker Hill Homestead. What are the stem length of the bouquets you target, and what height are your buckets? I'm like looking. I'm like, is there a bucket here? I'm like, is there a bucket somewhere nearby for me to grab? The buckets are about this big. I don't know. Let's say maybe 14 inches. I think is how tall the bucket is. And so the height of the bouquet, basically, like the flowers kind of determine the height of the bouquets. So the ranunculus are a good example. They're short, right? They don't get super tall. So the ranunculus bouquets, they are what they are. I can't I can't be like, oh, I cut ranunculus only when they're 18 inches or longer, because it'd be like, well, I guess I'm not selling ranunculus, because how often are they going to look like that here? But so what I do when I build the bouquets, because like I know that this is a little backwards way of answering the question of like how tall are the bouquets. But basically, like, I pick the flowers to be whatever height I want them to be. So if there's something and I'm trying to think of an example in my head. Like status. There's a great example. It's as tall as it is. You pick it right at ground level. So there you pick off all the length on status. And so how tall the status is determined by the variety. Different varieties get different heights. It's determined by how healthy and happy the plant is, how mature the plant is. On status, the first stems, they start short, and then they get taller and taller and taller as the season goes on. When the plants are sad, then they can bloom super, super short. Sorry, you're not allowed to be in here. Okay, not at all. Thank you. So so when I pick the status, I'll go and I'll pick them all and I'll have buckets of status. And so it's like, okay, all of my status is this tall. And I want to use it in a bouquet. And so then if I'm going and I have something else that I picked and it's like this tall, it's like super tall. If I wanted to put the super, super tall stem together with the status, which is only this tall, it means like sunflowers. There's a perfect example. Sunflowers, like cut them as tall as you want, right? Like you cut it at the ground. They're one flower. You get one and done. So you cut it as tall as you want. It doesn't make a difference. So with the sunflowers, if I was then to pair, the super long stem sunflower with the status that, right now is short, it only has 12 inches, then I would have to turn the sunflower bouquet into the height that the status is, right? Because you can't have anything that's short, like a stem, out of the water. Everything has to be cut to the same height. So I keep in mind what my different ingredients are. If every single thing in the farm is currently 16 inches in length, and then I go to pick lilies. I've been using a lot of lilies and bouquets right now. If I go to pick the lilies, there's no reason to cut the lilies off at the ground, right? Like my lilies are perennialized, so lilies, they kind of grow like this, and they just have like a ruffle of leaves, and then they have the flowers up at the top. So if everything that I'm working with is 16 inches, then when I go to pick the lily, I'm going to kind of pick an 18-inch lily, and I'm going to leave more of these ruffles, the ruffle leaves, because the more leaves I leave on the perennial lily plants, the more energy it can put back into the bulb to be able to bloom again for me next year. And so, I kind of keep in mind what my limitations are for stem length as I'm picking everything. And then when I go and I build my bouquets, I also keep in mind, okay, this ingredient is really short, this ingredient's really short, and this ingredient's really short. So these shorties are going to make short bouquets. And then and then I have like a classic bouquet that I made a ton of over the last 2 years was sunflowers mixed with glads, mixed with some sort of like really tall greenery or an amaranth spike. And the reason why I was making those bouquets is because they were all things that like had these really long stems. You know, it was like 36-inch stems, so I could make these super, super tall bouquets to have like something that's really tall, right? And then I then had like zinnia bouquets, let's say, you know, height of the season, my zinnias, I'm picking them as 24 inches, right? So they have really good height too. But then you know, this year my Lysianthus is going to be shorties. So all of my Lysianthus bouquets are going to be more petite. You know, like let's say they're, you know, like, so this is 12 inches. You know, that's pretty short. But maybe like if everything is 12 inches, sure, like I can make a 12-inch bouquet. And then I do have some shorter buckets. I have some buckets that are probably 8 inches tall, and so then I try to put my shorter bouquets into that. And then and a really important thing about the height of the bouquets is when I fill my buckets for market, I pair similar height bouquets together. And so by doing that, it gives the illusion that the short bouquets aren't as short as they are. If you had like a short bouquet and then like everything else is tall, the short one it's gonna look awkward, it's gonna look unintentional, it's gonna look wrong. So how you merchandise stuff can also kind of determine what you can do with the stems. So I know that isn't necessarily the answer of the question of like how long do I want things. You know, you want things as long as you can get them. The taller, you know, especially when you're trying to sell to florists, like you want things, the taller and longer the stem and the heavier the stem and the more beautiful the flowers are, the more healthy they are, the better you grow everything. That's what makes things like A grade, double A grade, you know, high quality stems, what the florists are used to. That is what makes it so you can charge the premium dollars, you know, because it takes as much work to grow a sad plant as it does to grow a healthy plant, labor-wise, but you can sell the healthy plant for a lot more than the sad plant. So you want to always be increasing your skills so you can increase your profitability of your farm. Is it possible to sustain just a flower farm without YouTube videos? Yeah, definitely. Like there's the entire world is full of flower farms. So Ian's everyone just keeps coming in here.
Well, I'm searching. I'm there. I hear a cat crying somewhere. I was checking to see if it was locked outside.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe outside. Maybe Kaya.
Maybe
Okay.
Kaya.
But can you keep the kids out, please?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Sorry. So can you be a flower farm? Yeah, definitely. Us currently, we can't pay our bills without the YouTube. But I'd also argue that there's a lot of flower farms who could be making YouTube videos who are not paying the bills with their YouTube, right? They're like, they would be making more money if they stopped making YouTube videos and they just focused on successfully selling the flowers. You know, so it's all a balance. You know, this is a point that Ian likes to remind me of, because I'm like, it's year 5, we're supposed to be profitable by year 5. But this is also year 2 of being a flower farm, right? We've changed our focus. We're kind of, you know, we haven't set ourselves on like a solid, this is what we're doing. Like we're still at the point in the business that we're like pivoting and tweaking the business, trying to find the best path to what will work. And you know, obviously, like some of the numbers that we share about the business are really weird, right? Because there's some stuff that we do that only makes sense in the context of the fact that we're like a flower farm. Like for example, I don't so we bought 1,000 glads, and we bought more than 1,000 glads. I made a video unboxing 1,000 glads, and after doing the video, I went and I bought another 1,000 glads. So on the farm, this year we have like 2,000 glads growing, and I don't have a lot of pressure on myself for that crop, even though I've invested in, I think we spent $400 or $500 on glad bulbs. I don't have a lot of pressure on myself for that glad purchase, because I was able to pay for the glad purchase by making a video about buying glad bulbs. So I knew that if I bought these glad bulbs, I'd be able to talk about glads and make a video about the glads. And then if I need glad flowers in the season, then they'll be there as a backup. But the crop was profitable because of the YouTube, right? So, and another thing that makes like the numbers when we talk about them in these videos is I'm very much trying to get the farm into a sustainable path on its own. I want the farm to be self-sustaining outside of the YouTube income. I don't necessarily want to think of what I'm doing on the farm and like in context to the YouTube, right? Because like, who knows what's going to happen with YouTube? YouTube might disappear. Like, who knows like what's going to happen with the farm? Like, it's if it's, I feel like it gives better data to think about the farm business as separate from the YouTube, even though in my personal finances for how I like pay my bills, they're not separate. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. So like, basically we're a weird example. Like, don't think that you have to have a YouTube channel to have a successful flower farm. Because if anything, I think it's probably more difficult to build a successful YouTube channel than it is to build a successful farm business. Because there's kind of like less clear paths and clear mentorship to follow for how to be successful at YouTube. There's a lot of balls in the air when it comes to how to be successful at YouTube. But there's like a lot of very clear ways to go forward with being successful as a farmer. But I do think that one thing that isn't really talked about in like what it takes to build a farm business, like when you do a quick Google search, right? The article's like how to start a farm, like the things that are going to pop up at the top of the list are going to be things talking about the fact that like it's easy, and like you don't listen to people saying that you're going to take a long time to make money. Like if you do it right, you'll be able to make money right away. I think there's a lot of talk about if you do it right, then you're gonna be profitable right away. Don't make sure you're always paying yourself. A lot of this kind of talk. When I think that the reality is that it takes time to build a successful business, and like farm businesses actually take a lot of investment. They take a lot of if you're not investing money, then they take a lot of like sweat equity invested into them. So what it takes to build it to a sustainable business, and the other thing is that's all determined by what a sustainable business means to you, right? You can build a business that from the beginning makes sure that it like pays for all of your time that you put into it, but maybe it's a business that is only capable of bringing in $10,000 a year, right? And so it's like, I worked for 500 hours, I'm always like, everyone should start if you want to be a flower farmer and you want to start a sunflower farm. right? Like, go spend $100 on pro-cut sunflowers, sell July and August and September, right? Like, it's simple, it's fairly easy. Everyone loves sunflowers, they're easy to sell, you know, but what that business isn't necessarily going to be what I've always been trying to grow, which is a business that's going to gross $100,000 a year, so that, you know, we would hopefully be able to take home $30, $35, $40,000 a year as like our wage out of the business. So, you know, I hope that doesn't come across as discouraging, and that it answers the question. But, you know, I want people to approach starting a flower farm from a position that they're aware of the risks, so that they are mitigating the risks, right? You know, starting a business is a gamble, you know, so you should know the odds, right? Like, if it's a 50-50 odds, you know, like, you can be confident that half the time you're going to win and half the time you're going to lose. But if you go into something thinking that it's 50-50, but it ends up that, you know, your odds of winning are only 10%, then it's going to be disappointing. So that's kind of my approach when I talk about business. I want everyone to start a business for themselves, but I also want everyone to be able to, you know, be able to be paid for their time. What's the best Rudbeckia? So my feelings on Rudbeckia, because I did a big Rudbeckia test last year. I grew like Sahara, I grew Double Daisy, I grew Irish Eyes. What's the other? There's another green centered one, and I grew it too. I can't remember. I grew the Indian Summer, which is the one that I'm obsessed with. I said Sahara already. There was like another, I've grown Cherry Brandy, which is like a dark, like it looks almost brown, but it's very deep, reddy colors. I grew another mix. I grew another like brown toned mix. And I really liked them. I loved all the colors. Double Daisy, it's like a million petals, and I love it. I love the look of it. The browns, amazing. Sahara, amazing. But my feelings at the end of growing all those other varieties is I only want to grow Indian Summer from now on. And the reason is a bunch of them were inconsistent at being able to hydrate. So the Double Daisy, I loved it. It was probably one of my favorite out of all of them. It's just like really, really yellow, but like this puffball. It was like, I still have a few plants and they're near the end, and I'm like, yay! Like, they make me happy to see. Like, put it in a garden. It's an amazing garden plant. I love it for that. But yeah, it just, you know, I'd pick a bucket and half of them would like wilt and look sad. Or I'd have them and they'd look amazing. I'd be like, okay, sweet. 24 hours later, they're fully hydrated. They're not going to wilt. And then I put it in a bouquet, and then it would wilt. And I'd be like, so I couldn't trust it, basically. And then there was a bunch of like the more browns and pinks and rusts and beiges, all those kind of tones that I love. Amazing for like wedding work. I had so much fun. I had like the brown Lisianthus last year, and then I had the Auric, the seeded stems that were in like all these amazing tones, and then there was like the like taupe Rudbeckias. I loved working with them, but the stem length was quite short, and I kind of got a really good pick on them, and then they finished off for the season. Whereas Indian Summer, nice long stems, very, very good vase life on it, very consistent, like hardly ever wilts, and it just produces and produces and produces. So going forward, even though I love all the other ones and I gladly grow them in a garden, I'm not going to put in the effort to try to have them in the farm because I'm very focused on just simplifying the farm with the flowers. You know, I want to find the most simple, stress-free, no fuss flowers that I can, to make it so that everything's just a lot more streamlined going forward in the years. So, yes, lots of beautiful Rebecca. Just because I'm not growing it doesn't mean you shouldn't grow it. But yeah. Okay, have you gotten your soil test results back yet? No. We we've just been busy with other stuff. It is a priority for us this year because we are having issues. Because I'm pretty sure we talked about that in like a video a while ago. The main farm area stuff is not growing the way it should, and it wasn't growing the way it should last year. And so I suspect that we're having issues from too much compost in the main farm area because it's year 5 and we've been dumping a lot of compost in year after year. So what I've been doing to combat it without the soil test is because like I need the numbers to know, but I put down a little bit of lime to try to like kind of balance the soil acidity because compost is acidic. So like we haven't limed at all since since our first year in getting the farm going. So you know, it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit in. Our soil's really sandy too, so stuff just kind of flushes out of it, like the water just rolls right through it. And then I've been doing some light fertilizing. I have like just an all-purpose granular fertilizer, and I've been putting like a very little bit of it down. I did it like last week, and then I did it, you know, like a month and a half ago. So I'm gonna just do a couple small, basic, you know, kind of like, oh, like put some Miracle-Gro in your garden type. It's not Miracle-Gro. It's like I buy it in a big sack. I go to I'm like, give me the all-purpose one, and they're like, boom, here you go. It's like unlabeled. It's like a white sack from the farm store. But yeah, so we need to get the soil test because what I'm doing isn't necessarily doing anything to help an imbalance. You know, I'm just kind of doing band-aid fixes, and I suspect that we're gonna need to do amending. But because of what I was saying about the soil, everything just kind of flushes through. We probably wouldn't amend this year anyways. It would be best for us to amend at the beginning of the season to kind of like have everything started off on the best foot. So we want to get the soil test done before the year's out. But we just need to get the window for when to get them and then file away our results for next year for how to start better. Could you sell enough flowers in the roadside stand to keep your business afloat? So, this is a good question that kind of pairs with what I was saying about our business is really weird. So, we are currently paying our bills with the money that we make from YouTube. Honestly, so last year we did almost 60,000, I think. I'd have to go back and watch the videos. At the end of the year, we do a video where we kind of like, this is how much money we made farming in this year. And we like kind of break down the YouTube too. It's kind of like the financial records video, which is great for us to do because like we kind of do them. So then we're like, okay, like let's process the entire year. Because as you're like, it's like okay, like do this. This is what the year feels like. This right here. This is exactly what the year feels like. You're just snowballing down the hill, just trying to keep up. And so we really like making those videos because it's like, okay, let's look back over the whole year. Let's see what the numbers are. Okay, sorry guys. I'm losing track. roadside stand. Is the roadside stand a sustainable business? Okay, let's not rant. Let's stay focused. Yeah, so we pay our bills with doing the YouTube. The goal this year was, because we recognize that the truth of the business numbers is that the time that we spend on YouTube has the best return for our income, right? So, we've been spending 40 hours, 50 hours a week on the YouTube for the last few years. And then we've kind of been spending 80 or 100 hours a week on the farm. And the return on the investment of our time into the YouTube is much, much higher than the return of the investment of our time into the farm. So the goal for this year going forward was to recognize that, be honest with ourselves about that, and to give the YouTube more time. So like I was saying, like we're only going to grow Indian summer Rudbeckia going forward because we want to streamline and simplify the farm. We're going to plant $10,000 worth of peonies this year. I've been really resistant to doing that. I was fine with having a small section of the farm turned into peonies because once they're in, they're kind of, it's going to take a lot for me to rip out peonies because they're kind of, once they're established, they're great, but having a perennialized crop that I really don't want to remove limits the ways that I can pivot the farm. So I don't mind being a flower farm because at any point at any time I could choose to stop being a flower farm and I go back to being a veggie farm, or it could be this kind of farm as long as we're farming the land, maintaining the soil, keeping the weeds out of the farm area, all the irrigation infrastructure, all the weeding tools, everything that we're investing into for long-term investments are very flexible for us to be able to change the business to adapt to how things are selling. So, I've been resistant to wanting to put in too many perennials, and especially those like more shrubby ones, like the peonies, because then I couldn't pivot as much. But some of those things like peonies are also a way to streamline and simplify everything. And so we're thinking of the farm, how can we spend less? How can we make it so we are spending 40 hours a week on the farm? And then, maybe we don't want to spend 80 hours a week on YouTube, but maybe we could spend 60 hours a week on YouTube and, then have 20 hours to, do family things together, get some more sleep, and, put out a second video for YouTube, because if we could double our output on YouTube, then our income is going to go up by 40% on the YouTube. Whereas if we take away labor from the farm, it's not necessarily going to, spending less if we don't work 100 hours on the farm, what we sell in 50 hours versus 100 hours isn't, I don't know, math, right? But so going back to the question of could the roadside stand on its own be a viable business? Because the farmers markets, they take a lot of labor. We really like doing them, so we don't necessarily, we're biased to, if we're going to keep doing it, we might still do it even if it doesn't make financial sense because we enjoy doing it. But I do think that the roadside stand could be a fairly viable business on its own. And this is like a conversation that that I've been having with Ian, right? Because it's like where are we gonna put our time? Where are we gonna invest our time in years going forward? Should we keep investing our time in this way? Should we keep investing our time in this way? But yeah, I could see with adding on some more products, like having perennial plants, doing doing like, we gave up on the seedling sale, but maybe coming back to, you know, more of a seedling sale type thing in the early spring. You know, bringing in more products, maybe having the roadside stand. One thing we're talking about this year, because our sales are down, but we have the employee, right? So we're going to have the energy to go later in the year. We've been closing the roadside stand early because sales drop off. And we haven't been doing a Christmas season at all because we're burnt out by the time Christmas happens. So we take off Christmas because we need to recover. But with the employee, okay, like maybe this year we'll keep the roadside stand open through November. We'll do Christmas wreaths. We'll do like evergreen type work. You know, maybe we would want to bring in some wholesale flowers. Though I'm like, I prefer to do evergreen work than to be bringing in wholesale flowers. But, you know, so maybe there's other ways that we haven't thought about utilizing the roadside stand that we can experiment a bit over the next year or two. And yeah, I think that it's easy for me to imagine, not next year necessarily, but in a few years from now, the roadside stand could be, you know, doing $50,000 a year. And it could be potentially doing it, depending on how well I streamline things. It could be doing it, you know, with a lot less labor than what we're currently spending to do a little bit of the farmers market, a little bit of the roadside stand, you know. And if we build up some Floracell, if we're able to, you know, have 10,000 peonies that we sell wholesale, you know, if we're kind of, you know, just tweak things a bit. Yeah, there's definitely a world where I imagine the roadside stand for us could be the business. So I know that was very off topic, but I hope that answered the question. Have there been any fights at the farmer's market? That's a really funny question. And so like, my farmer's market is amazing. And like, part of what makes the farmer's market, the Kelowna farmer's market, amazing is the culture of our farmer's market. So there isn't like, if there is like a fight between vendors at our market, it's gonna pass over like fairly quickly, because everyone, you know, the market is very you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. Like everyone's very like, we're all working together to make the best possible experience. We're all team members in the market. We're not, you know, competing against each other. You know, like when I often go down to the farmer's market to see Ian. You know, and I'll like be in the video where it's like, oh, I'm here at the farmer's market, you know, and then, but what actually happens is I come and I'm like, oh, hey Ian, how's it going? Like, go get a snack, go use the bathroom. I'll like watch the stand for a little bit. And then I go and I shop and I schmooze with all the other farmers. I'm like, oh, hey guys, like, how's it going? Like, you know, like there's a really good community at a farmer's market. But I'm in Facebook groups for other farmers, and some farmers markets are just like pure drama. It's like they need to like forget like Real Housewives. They need to be like the dark side of the market. It would make very good reality TV, because I definitely have like happily fed my drama llama in some of these farmers market groups. Hearing people gossip about how many crazy fights there can be at their farmers markets, and it's like, oh, the farmers market, they're all fighting, and it's like a war, and then they split into two markets, and they're competing against each other, and both markets fail, and then someone else comes and starts a new market. Yes, there can definitely be drama, you know, but I think it's like people, right? You know. One of the things that makes our market amazing is we have an amazing market manager. Shout out to Frances. She's the best. We love her. And you know, when you have a strong commander, strong moral and ethical figurehead guiding your ship, you don't have to worry. It keeps everyone in line. So we're very lucky. Do you have trouble with bugs on your snapdragons? Yeah, we get bugs on everything. Flower farmers are always like, oh, thrips. And, like, yeah, like I have that, like they're all over the farm. Which is part of the reason that I haven't been selling to florists, right? Because if I have bug pressure on the crops, that's not acceptable in like high grade. Like you can't, like I can't sell to florists flowers that have like been eaten by grasshoppers. But when I'm like throwing together market bouquets where the price is like pretty much wholesale on the stems that I'm using, I'm like, yeah, if it got nibbled a little bit by a grasshopper, like it still looks beautiful. It's just a puff of bright, beautiful color, and so I'll still use it. In general, the healthier the plants, the less bug pressure. So the better you get at growing the stuff, sorry, I'm like, it's maybe starting to rain outside. I'm being distracted because I left the camera outside. Okay, if Ian comes by, I need to stop. Yeah, so the healthier you can get the plants, the lower the pest pressure is going to be. And so, a good example is my yarrow. So, I'm distracted by the weather out the window. Right behind the camera is like a big window. Okay, focus. Yeah, so my yarrow last year covered in aphids. I couldn't use any of it, and that's kind of my solution. If I have a crop that's really buggy, I just don't use it. I'll like cut it, throw it in the compost, or like I won't cut it. I'll just leave it, and then it looks pretty in the videos, and then I can still make money off of it. And like I was saying, the balance is kind of weird for some of my stuff. When things bloom out for me, or like I know I'm like going back to this, but in the videos, sometimes you'll see me, because this is like a comment that we get a lot where people are like, why are you planting an entire bed? Like, what a waste of effort, what a waste of money. And the effort to plant half a bed versus planting like a full bed it's not like it takes twice as much work. To do a single tray versus doing 6 trays, it's to do a quarter of a bed, it is like half as much work as doing an entire bed. So I will often plant out the entire bed with knowing that I'm only going to pick half of it so that I can have half of it looking beautiful for the videos. So there's some things that I do that look wasteful, but we're doing it because we're creating beauty on the farm, like just for the videos. So like there's stuff that like, and the Rudbeckia is a great example. We have way more Rudbeckia than we need. We let it bloom, we keep it like, oh, it looks beautiful, it looks amazing, because I'm like, looks so great. And then I cut it back so that I can have it in the fall. But maybe other people would be, oh, I need to try to sell it, I need to try to do this. But for me, I don't have to, because I'm making money just by having it bloom and having something pretty to talk in front of. Okay, but yeah. So if my crops get really buggy, I don't sell them. But yeah, snapdragons are one specifically that's tricky because you might think that your crop is like great and there's no bugs because they live inside, right? They're like, snapdragons are like this, the flowers, and so like you're like, oh, it looks great, but then like there's like a million bugs living inside of here, and maybe you thought it was good, and then you bring it inside and then they all climb out, and you're like, no, now there's bugs everywhere, it's a mess. So my condolences. I understand the frustration with snapdragons, but I don't have any tricks because okay, next question. Is it too late to start fall seedlings for the roadside stand? So I wouldn't be looking to sell fall seedlings. So the way that the weather works here is we basically, September is like pure summer. September is like hot still. So home gardening in Kelowna is very fun because if you like growing summer crops like tomatoes, which who doesn't like growing tomatoes, it's very, very, very easy to grow them because you kind of put them in the ground once the heat comes, and then it's just hot, 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 and then it stays hot until it just ends, right? Like one of the tricky things about farming in Kelowna is we don't have, our weather isn't like, oh, it ramps into summer and then it ramps down. It's not like, oh, spring and then it like slowly heats up and then it slowly goes down. How the season works is it's cold and then summer and then it's cold again, right? So there's not the shoulder seasons are not easy. So because of that, like home gardeners don't necessarily do like a fall planting because all of the summer crops are still going really strong during the period of time when other people would be doing a fall planting of like veggies, right? So we we wouldn't be growing out fall veggies for people's gardens, and people also wouldn't need like fall plants for their home gardens because it's the same thing. Everyone would have planted stuff that loves the summer for their flowers, annuals wise, and they keep going until they're done, and then the season's just kind of done. Then we're kind of moving out of growing season, and I don't. There's no reason for me to do something like to try to do potted mums, right? Like that's like those things are just so available at a price that is just like so not able for me to compete with it, that there's no reason to try to compete with that. And we are a little bit limited. So the laws, like our zoning rules for what we can sell, because this is important. If you have a business, if you're trying to have a farm business, look up what you're allowed to do on your property. We're zoned agricultural, but the type of stand that we have determines the type of product that we can sell in it. So because of the stand the way that it is, we can only sell like products that are grown by us. So I would be able to buy in plugs and then grow out potted mums to then sell. That would be like I grew them, but I can't buy in already grown potted mums to then resell in the stand, right? So same for like seedlings. I could buy plugs of perennials that I then pot up and grow out for a month before then selling it, but I can't buy in completely finished perennials that I then just resell, like the hardware stores that, like, when you go, they're from a specific place, so I need to, I want to follow the rules so I don't have any issues at all. So I'm a little limited on what I would be able to do for the stand for fall stuff. And also, like, it's like, I know sometimes we're slow to make changes, and I can hear some of the frustration in people, right? Because we'll make a video and it's like, oh, the farmer's market's doing really poorly. And then people will be like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, you should change this, you should change that. And, you need data to understand what's happening. So, we're not necessarily going to be making any big changes to what the plan for the year is this year. We're not going to stop doing the farmer's market at all. I don't want to make any like huge changes to the roadside stand because I want to be able to look at the year once the year's over and be like, okay, so we followed through on a whole year of selling at the market. Did it start weak and then the sales got better? Was it because of the heat wave? Like, was that, I need a data set to analyze before I can make the pivot to, what we want to do next year. So, like, and as I said also a million times, the YouTube videos pay our bills, so I don't have to worry about if we the goal this year was to make $75,000 gross sales through the farm business. So that's not including like any sort of like YouTube products. Like if we made a calendar, we'd factor that into YouTube. We wouldn't necessarily factor that into like farm product. And so so 75,000 was the goal. I don't think that we're on track to do that. But if we only make 60,000 instead of the 75,000, that's not going to be like catastrophic for us. That's not going to be like, oh, now we have to shut down the flower farm because we're in debt and we can't like pay our bills. It's just, it means that the business isn't growing in the way I wanted it to, right? Because I'm aiming for 100. We're gonna get there. Year 6, 100. So I need to watch things to know how things are working, so I can try to make the best decisions possible. But it's tricky. It's hard to know what's happening. You kind of have to just make these guesses. Okay, let's see. Next question. What percentage of seeds that you buy that grow up to sell would be considered a good percentage? So I think that you're asking about first off germination, like germination rates. So this is a multi-part question. Like how many things, the first question is seedlings, and then next question, let's make this a 3-part question, right? How much do you lose in the seedling stage, right? And then the next question is like, what are losses in the growing stage? And then the final part to it is, what are losses in the final product stage? I think that's probably a good way to kind of break down that question. So seedlings. So when you get your seeds, there will be a germination rate that comes with it if you buy it from a place like Johnny Seeds, right? And so Johnny Seeds will be like, okay, the germination rate on this specific seed is 70%. So that means if you bought 100 seeds, then best case scenario, you're going to get 70 plants. And that's best case scenario, right? So for me, I don't grow that good of seedlings. I'm not going to get the same germination rate as what the best case germination rate is. So like when I do seedlings, for me, if something said that it was a 70% germination rate, I would put 2 seeds per like cell, right? Because then if I'm only going to get 50%, then then half of them will die, and so then I'll still have full trays. But if it was like, oh, it has 99% germination rate, then I'm not gonna put in 2 seeds. I'm just gonna put in 1 seed, because it would be a lot of work for me to go through and like take out the extra plants per cell. So let's say that it is 100% germination rate. My beds are 400, so I need 400 plants per bed, and I like to grow things in full beds worth, because it makes it easy for me to manage the crops in the field. So I'm almost always aiming for that 400 number. So when I'm doing my wind strip trays, which are 128 trays, I do 4 trays. So that means I have just over 500 plants that I start in hopes of getting 400. And I am not good enough. So usually when I'm doing the wind strip trays, those beds will be like a little short. Let's say I got like 375 out of my potential 500 to get to the point that I can transplant out the seedlings. If I'm doing a 72 tray, then I do 6 trays. So that's, I don't know, what is that? that's even less, isn't it? Yeah, that's like, maybe I need to be doing more than 6. Maybe I should be doing 7. Maybe the problem is I'm not doing enough. Basically, like I'm expecting to have like a 25%. 20%, 25% me killing seedlings, right, on seedlings. And then once the plants are into the ground, so I've transplanted them, now I'm growing them. At that point, for me, you know, like I don't have too much loss on the plants, but I don't grow anything that has bug pressure so bad that it will kill off stuff. If I have something that I like grow and then bugs will come and like kill 50% of my plants, I'll be like, well, I'll just never grow that again because that was too much work for bugs and I'm not going to fight the bugs, so we're not doing that. So for actual plants dying in the ground, I think it's probably pretty accurate for me to say maybe 10% die. You know, like I could walk the row and there would be holes, you know, like 40 plants gone, right? Like every 10 plants, there's a hole. You know, I think that's probably pretty close. You know, maybe it's more like 8 or 7%. But it's not really noticeable once they're in the ground, right? Because if there's a gap here and there, it all fills in. Like you guys wouldn't see it in the video, and I don't even really see it very much either at that point. So then we're to the third point, which is like, so now you can harvest, and then then what is your losses? And this is the one that's really tricky, because basically you want to make sure that you're selling everything that you're putting labor into, right? So the labor to like plant out the seedlings is one thing, but the labor to harvest the harvest the flowers is probably one of the biggest labor components. Like the harvesting and then the processing and the arranging, all of that takes up a huge amount of time on the farm. So I try very much to not be just picking everything, because there's no point in picking everything when I can't actually sell. I'd rather leave it out in the field to bloom. Certain things, they need to get deadheaded. So like cosmos are a great example. If you don't keep up with the picking on the cosmos, they very quickly get out of control, and then they're very difficult to pick, and the plants can also kind of like stop flowering. So how I manage that is I just don't pick, and then I'll like hack it down. Like I'll take like a hedge trimmer and deadhead in a really aggressive way. But yeah, so for me currently on the farm, the amount of flowers that basically like end up in the compost, I would say is fairly low. I feel. I mean, like I don't know. I don't know what other people's compost piles look like, but I'd say probably like 25% of what I pick ends up like getting just thrown away. And that can be that when I'm picking it, like I cut it, and as I rip the leaves off, the stem breaks, and so compost. When we're arranging it, the stem bends, compost. Like when we are going through it, the stem's too short. We've used everything, and there's just shorties left. I'll pick entire buckets of stuff. So there's like 150 stems in a bucket. We build it for bouquets. There's going to be 20 stems left at the end of bouquet building. And it's like whatever into the compost. Our bouquets, we have bouquets that don't sell. Like right now, like we didn't have a very good market last week. And so I'm just mentally in my head, I think I probably have 7 buckets. So with like, let's say 4 in it. So like 25, maybe even 30 bouquets that didn't sell from my weekend. And so like those would technically be loss. We donate them at this point. We're donating them down to the food bank. Our leftovers from the weekend. Midweek we usually have a few bouquets, every day that don't sell. So bouquets, losses on bouquets is probably even like 20%. On out of the stand for midweek. With these markets being poor, but back, like, because the weekends, the better things sell, the less losses I can have, right? Because then I can make enough to keep up with demand without having to make any losses to needing to make a marketable display. So the reason why midweek we have probably 20% of the bouquets that are losses is because of the fact that I need to have something in the stand. I can't, if we're only going to sell 4 bouquets on a Tuesday, I can't just put 4 bouquets in the stand because I need there to be options for people to pick from. So, on a Tuesday, there's 6 bouquets in the stand, and then at the end of the day, there's 2 still left. But yeah, as much as possible, I try to make sure that those, if I've done the work to pick, harvest, arrange, process, wrap, bouquet it, I try to get those into people's hands. And the midweek ones, like, we gift to neighbors, we gift to family and friends, we bring some into the house. Okay, losses. I feel like I went over that pretty thoroughly. Okay. And just so you guys know, I paused the chat so that I could go through the actual questions, because I take forever to answer questions. And so it's over an hour now, so I'll still go for a little bit longer. But I probably am not going to be able to get through all the questions because I can't stay super late because I have stuff that I have to do, and it's going to rain on my camera. I have to go get it. What have you grown that copes well with really hot weather or low water? So most of what we grow at this point is drought tolerant, heat loving plants, because we live in a desert, and it gets really hot here. So all of our summer stuff is kind of in that category. So watch farm tour to get the list. I can't really break down the entire farm. But I will say that one thing to keep in mind when looking at what we're doing is we have no humidity, which affects things. So that affects how dry we are. With there being no humidity, the air pulls water out of the ground. Right? That's whereas if you're in a really humid place, when it's hot, it's muggy, right? So it kind of changes some of the factors for what you're looking for. So some of what we grow and how we grow it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're in a place that is high heat, but you have humidity along with it. Some of the things that we're doing and talking about will seem really backwards. But yeah, basically, so anytime I pick things to grow on the farm, I'm looking drought tolerant, heat lovers. I'm very selective when I'm doing the seed shopping, to make sure basically if it says that it can be full sun to part shade, then I know that I don't want to grow it, because if it can handle part shade, then it's not going to be able to handle sun. So I make sure that everything is a full sun plant, to be able to handle the heat and the dry weather. Those are some tips for when doing a shop. What do you do to combat leggy, stretching thin baby seedlings? So if your seedlings are doing that, it's because you're doing something wrong. So that there can be a million reasons why, right? do they have enough sun, right? Like do they need more light? Do they have enough water? Do they need to get planted, right? Like are they root bound, and so they're growing. The one of the hard things about combating that problem.
I think where the kitten tears were coming from.
Oh, was there? One of our kittens was locked up, was he?
He was downstairs and the gate was closed.
Oh, our kitten got locked in the basement because he's too tiny.
He's asleep on the stairs.
He's too tiny. These little sweet ones. Are you coming to join?
Maybe in a bit.
Okay. I can't do too much because maybe can you get the camera? It's outside the greenhouse, but I'm like, is it gonna rain? Yay.
The Sony or the Canon?
It's the Sony. Yeah, so the problem. Okay, bring him back here because he's too cute.
Well,
these kittens are so cute. We're getting like nothing done this year.
Okay.
If we don't sell enough this year, it's because I'm doing this all day.
Have you shown off the little fluff of white on the end of the tail?
Oh, he's so cute.
Okay, and this is my favorite bit of him. He's got.
I have the chat paused, so.
He's got an adorable face, but here, lift your mouth up, and then underneath he's got a little dribble spot.
Oh, you got a little dirty mouth, but it's not dirty.
Little dribble spot.
Yeah, these kittens are so cute because they actually want to get like picked up and snuggled and carried around everywhere. Oh, you're getting trapped again. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the problem with like thin leggy seedlings is. If they've done that, you've done something wrong, and there's no going back in time to getting like 100% healthy seedlings. You can salvage it somewhat, but the plants are going to be a lot less healthy and happy, and it can kind of snowball into like a big problem, right? So you have unhappy seedlings and you put them in the ground, and because they're unhappy seedlings, the plants are more susceptible to pest pressure, and because the pest pressure comes and attacks the unhappy seedlings in the ground, they never grow up into the big happy plants that they should have been, and so then they die and you never get anything from them, or they go on to flower but they flower super short, or the flowers are like not very usable because they're these desperate sad plants. Kind of the best thing you can. Okay, so I say this all the time, but I say it all the time because I think it's very valuable. The best thing that can happen in gardening for being able to learn is to have mistakes happen, because then you can know that you did something wrong and try to use those mistakes to grow your knowledge. If the first time you go to grow seedlings, you have perfect, happy, healthy seedlings, everything's great, you don't know what you did right. So, the good thing about having unhappy seedlings is you can start to build your knowledge on how to have happy seedlings, just by like troubleshooting and just keep eliminating the obvious problems, and every year they get better and better, and like I'm not there. I still grow very sad, unhappy leggy seedlings, but hopefully one of these years I'll get good, strong, happy, and healthy stuff. Okay, let's see. Could you grow for a commercial florist who makes large orders for weddings? Okay, so we did answer that question at the beginning. The goal this year, but I'll quickly do it. The goal this year is to sell to florists, but because of the weather, we haven't had enough volume to sell to florists. But we're hoping to start to build some of that as customers moving forward. But, like one of the things is they have to be high quality, right? Like I can't my sad seedlings that turn into sad plants can't be sold to florists. He's just outside getting the camera. And you need to have a lot, right? Like when I go to make bouquets, I need 100 of something. So if I want to reach out to 10 florists and be like, hey, do you want to buy a bucket of flowers? If I only have 100, and they're all like, yeah, sure, we all want a bucket, then I'm gonna be like, oh, like I don't have 1,000. So there's no point trying to sell when I don't have enough to satisfy need, because the goal is to establish relationships and to be like, hey, look, like when I say I have something, I have it. When I bring you flowers, they're good quality. It's better to slowly grow the business than to shoot yourself in the foot early on. Our snapdragons cut and come again. So no, but maybe is the answer. So when you cut a snapdragon, it's the one flower, right? You cut it, got it, yay. And if you pinch it, you can maybe have a couple. Like let's say you pinch it, and then it's going to send up 4 smaller stems instead of 1 big stem. But if you cut the snapdragon at this time of year, there's a chance that maybe it'll send up some smaller side stems in the fall. So it's not cut and come again like how a zinnia is, where it's always just bloom, 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 bloom. It's more of like flower farmers will call it a second flush. So it's kind of like you've cut off the flowers, the plant has reset, and then bloomed again. And those always take like a few months before it happens. So for me here on the farm, my Costa, my Chantilly, my like early season snapdragons, I'd leave to get another round of stems in the fall, maybe. But I wouldn't necessarily leave like my summer ones. I'd be like, yeah, whatever, they're not gonna bloom anyway, so I'll pull them out. And honestly, for the quality of the side stems, for what I get, and this could be that snapdragons don't especially like growing in the heat and the dry conditions that I make them suffer through. The quality of the stems isn't really that great. I'd probably be better off just having a fall succession in my planting and taking those snapdragons out and replacing them with a different plant. Okay, Ian brought more kittens.
Leah just had a bath, and it smells like Nugget maybe got into the bath.
And he jumped in the bath. Okay.
He got
So I have
some
the-
bathwater on him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
I'm hungry.
Just smell rice?
Oh, is your roadside stand air conditioned? Yes. So we have a massive air conditioner. So, okay.
I tried to
This- and this-
him off of.
So, backstory. The roadside stand we wanted to have a roadside stand for a long time, and it took us a long time to figure out how we could have a roadside stand, because the spot where everyone pulls over in front of our house, it's like a spot that before we built the roadside stand, people would use it to pull over all the time. Like, oh, I'm getting a phone call, pull over here, or, like people just used it as a pull off on the road. Gets stupid hot up there. It's like right beside a road. There's no water, there's no nothing. The sun comes over the afternoon. So the hottest time of the day for us here in Kelowna is 5 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock is the hottest time of the day. High noon, sure, the sun's up high, but it just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter the longer the sun's out. So at 5 o'clock, up at the front of the roadside stand, it becomes unbearable because the sun has like lifted over, the sun's over here, and it's right on the front of the house. And so I have no idea how hot it gets up there, but we've like put thermometers up there and it gets to be like 120, right? So it's too hot to be able to display things. And the other important thing to know about how hot it is the main time window when we get all of our sales and all of our traffic is from 3 o'clock, maybe 2:30 to 5 o'clock. So at the time that it's the hottest and most unbearable, up where the people want to pull off and come to our house is the time when the things are most likely to just die instantly. So So we were like, well, like how are we gonna do this? So we were like, I guess we just can't have a roadside, like we can't put things out there. We can't have a roadside stand. And then we saw someone who had a roadside stand that had an air conditioner in it, and like the roadside stand is like 10 feet from our house. It's like it's easy to run power to it. And we were like, why did we never think of just putting an air conditioner in there? Like, doy, like obvious. So when we built the roadside stand, we knew that it was going to have an air conditioner in it. We knew how hot it was. We knew that we wanted things. Oh, he's all wet because he jumped in the bath. We knew that it was going to be hot. We knew that that we wanted things to be as cool as possible. So, oh, Ian's bringing more cats.
No, we have something.
We actually have a talking cat.
Bo can say ow.
You can say ow, Bo?
Oh, you're supposed to.
He doesn't perform for the camera.
No. We were petting his belly and he goes,
Why were you hurting him? Why were you hurting him? Making him say ow.
I just let him inside, and then he like came back inside, and then he went right to the window to get back out.
I was grabbing his belly,
all
and, like,
hot.
rubbing it, and he's like,
Okay, so because we knew that the roadside stand was gonna have an air conditioner, because we knew it was so hot, when we built the roadside stand, oh, Bo's here, so he's gonna rub on the tripod. We built the roadside stand insulated in the exact same way that our walk-in cooler is insulated. So the roadside stand is 8 feet by 8 feet on the outside, but the inside of the roadside stand is 7 feet by 7 feet because there's 6 inches of insulation on it, right? Or 4, and then sheeting, right?
No, it's 2 by 6. So then there's like outside wall bits. And stuff.
Yeah.
But there's essentially
Yeah, so there's
6
like,
inches of insulation.
there's a crazy amount of insulation in there.
The floor is insulated. The ceiling is
Yeah,
insulated.
everything is it's basically built like a walk-in cooler. And then the air conditioner that we have in the roadside stand, oh, Bo's coming to try to let everyone know. The roadside stand, the air conditioner that we have in there is like way too big for the size of the roadside stand. But we have that specific air conditioner in there because of the fact that we use a CoolBot in our cooler, and the CoolBot system, you basically convince an air conditioner to run colder than it wants to go. And when you do that, it makes it more likely that your air conditioner is gonna blow up on you. So anytime they do tend to go, because we had one go, it's at the height of the summer and there's no air conditioners available because they're all sold out because everyone else has gone and bought air conditioners. So the air conditioner on the roadside stand is super big because it is our backup air conditioner for if our walk-in cooler gives out on us. And so I know that everyone is like, you're wasting so much on air conditioning. Like, oh my God, it's crazy. We actually did the math because we got a power bill. And like, what was it? It's like our air conditioners, because we have air conditioners in like the outbuilding too, and the walk-in cooler. And I think we figured out it costs us like 50 cents a day to run all the air conditioners.
Yeah, they're not going as much as you think. A lot of the times when we're filming, it's kind of like the heat of the day. And so maybe they're running at that point in time, like the air conditioner in the roadside stand. But, you know, for a lot of the morning, for a lot of the night, for a lot of the, you know, like late, it's just, they're not going. It's only when this is really hot out there. And people are always like, oh, you should put a door on there or something. But as soon as we like close the door, it's like nobody comes.
Yeah. And I know people have talked about a storm door, and I'm like, yeah, it's not a bad idea. But we don't know how to put one on. So
Yeah,
maybe
we didn't
maybe it's maybe it's a winter project because things like it's not a house, right? It's not necessarily built the way a door is supposed to be built. I don't know. Well, but no matter what, that is like one thing to understand about the roadside stand. Like it's built to hold the cool in. So, you know, I know our doors open, but all that insulation is kind of, is there a source of non-chemical manure for amendments? So so you could definitely use, I think you mean like a source of fertilizer that is
Natural?
a manure instead. And so yeah, but they're on a farm scale, things start to get a little bit more difficult. So like if you use an organic, like, or at least the organic fertilizer that we get from our local farm store, it's made up of animal waste products. And so the reason why it's going to be different than just putting a manure down is to go back, people asking like, oh, like are like the soil tests, right? Like when you get a soil test, it's going to say, oh, do you need nitrogen? Do you need phosphorus? I don't know, like the three different things. And so fertilizers are made up of like a balance of those three different things. And, you know, often when you're like amending the soil to a soil test, it's not just, oh, I'm just going to put out a basic all-purpose. Maybe you only need nitrogen, but you don't need the other two, right? Like you're looking for a specific balance of stuff, and so you need to have, you know, pieces that have more of one and less of another. So the natural, the organic fertilizer that we get is like made up of like feathers, right? Like feathers will be like feather bone meal and blood meal, and you know, like a lot of those organic fertilizers are made up of different parts, different waste products from like meat processing, because you know, feathers are like, I don't know the science of it, but you know, the blood has this one thing that it needs, and the feathers has this other one piece that it needs, and you know, and so then they're able to like put it together to have the different balances that you need. So yeah, you definitely, you don't have to get the you know, and like calling it a chemical is like, you know, kind of not exact, right? Because like, what is it? Water is a chemical, right? But you know, you can get stuff that is made up in these different ways and different types of fertilizers, but on a farm, because of scale, right? Like the amount of money it would cost us to spread free manure is a lot higher than the amount of money that we would spend to purchase in a fertilizer, because labor costs money. And so, you know, even if a fertilizer is free, it's going to cost us, or a manure is free, it's going to cost us our time to get it and to spread it. If we can purchase a product that is going to bring down the labor, then maybe that's going to make more sense for us. So like, you know, and that's like, that's a big reason why we don't necessarily go. Like, first of all, I don't fertilize properly. Like, you know, I'm not the person to ask for how to do all these things in the proper way, because, you know, like I don't know how to do it. I need to ask the person and then learn. So, you know, I don't really talk about it much in the videos, but I know sometimes like what I'm doing won't always make sense in context, because of the labor, right? Like the labor is a huge factor in why we choose to do things certain ways. I found sea holly at Rona today. Should I go back and buy it? I mean, it's hard for me to pass by sea holly, but you know, I'm not a snob. I'll buy a plant at Rona. But yeah, I love sea holly. Okay, let's see. I think someone was talking about 100 hours. I think so. What I'm doing is I'm scrolling. Someone's like, go get the camera, we'll wait. Okay, Ian got the camera. Oh, and look at that, perfectly just in time. It just started raining. It was meant to be. Oh, let's see. With the crazy hot spring weather this year, will you grow ranunculus again? So that wasn't in capitals, but I saw it, and that's actually a good question. So yes, I will grow ranunculus again, but I learned a really, really good lesson from having, like, so ranunculus, I didn't lose money on ranunculus this year. I covered the cost on the ranunculus. But I lost money on the anemones. I paid a lot more money than I paid $800 in corms, and I sold $100 in stems. So I lost a lot of money on anemones, and it was money well spent, right? Because when you make mistakes, then you learn important lessons that make it so that you can do better in the future, right? So the important lesson that I learned isn't that I shouldn't grow those crops, but the lesson that I learned is that I need to think about profitability of specific crops, not in a single year, right? So if I grow something and I make crazy money on it, right? Let's say I made a profit. So a profit is more than the cost, right? So profit is after buying the corms, after buying the supplies to grow it, and after covering the labor, right? After doing all that, then making money in addition, right? So ranunculus, okay? So ranunculus, we're gonna break it down, right? So profit, that's yay, we covered everything, and then so all of that, the base cost to cover everything was $5,000, and then we actually sold $10,000. So we made a profit of $5,000 on that crop, right? And then let's say that the ranunculus, these aren't real numbers, but then let's say the ranunculus, the cost of the ranunculus was $5,000 with the labor and the investment and everything, and I only sold $5,000. So there's no profit on that crop, right? But I broke even. I didn't lose money on that crop. And then we have anemones, right? And they cost $5,000 for the investment and the labor and everything, and then I sold $100, right? So major losses on that crop. But if we then took, let's say those crops in the year before were that $10,000, right? So I made a profit of $5,000 on that crop, and then you looked on both of those crops. So both of those crops, these are imaginary numbers. Both of those crops the year before made $5,000 profit, right? Then if we look at those crops as a multi-year system, not as a single year, then what we're going to find out is that, well, anemones made $0, so I lost $5,000 this year, but they made a profit of $5,000 last year, so that crop is actually a break-even crop, and the ranunculus crop, break even this year and $5,000 profit last year, across the 2 years, actually still made a profit of $2,500 across the multi-year numbers. So the lesson that I learned is that I need to think of things in a multi-year system, because that is going to give me the data that is going to allow me to make the best decisions moving forward with the flower farm. Because if I looked at anemones and ranunculus in the year that they profited $5,000, I think they're amazing amazing, right? Put all of our money into that. It doubles our money. Everything that we invested brings twice as much out of it. But if I would have looked at them only from the year where they lost me $5,000, then I would have been oh my God, that never grow this. This is a horrible crop. And the reality is that, if it's really strong one year and not strong the next year, but the profit it makes in the good year allows it to still be balanced into being profitable on the poor year, then maybe it's still a good crop. And then so ranunculus, still good. I should still grow ranunculus. Anemones, like maybe we need to look more closely at anemones, right? Because they actually broke even. But when you start to look at all those numbers and to compare a bunch of the crops, you do start to find out that some of the things that you thought were your best crops of all, and I'm specifically thinking zinnias when I'm saying this. Sometimes when you're like, oh, this is the best, like I should just grow only this. This is amazing. I'm making crazy money on this. When you actually go and you crunch all those numbers and you look at what your profit is, not just your sales, but your profit over your labor and your investment, you maybe find out that these crops that you thought were incredible are only bringing you in, 10% profit, and then there's the ranunculus that can have a rough year or a good year. They're kind of a boom or bust, but they're still a 25% crop. So, even though it's riskier, the numbers say that it is the better investment long term in a multi-year system. So I don't. Oh, the question was if I'm gonna grow ranunculus again, and that is me saying like, oh, I learned a big lesson about how to think about the flower farm to get better statistics. I don't know. I don't know if this is helpful for anyone, but these are the things that I think about. Okay, by planting the full bed, you account for the percent of loss. Are you inside sowing any seeds? Okay, so there's two ways that I think this question could go, and I'll answer both of them. So I think that what you're asking is that when I plant the bed, so I grow out 500 seedlings, and then I plant the bed, and I didn't actually have enough. There's an empty I grow it poorly, and there's 50 empty spots at the end of the bed. Do I then go and start another tray to fill in that empty hole? And the answer is that no, I don't do that. And the reason is because that those numbers that I was sharing are like the things that go poorly, right? Because like I like to plan for worst case scenario. But every once in a while there's like, oh, I planted 500 and every single one of them survived. So now I have an extra 100 plants. And then I have these empty gaps at the end of the rows. And so then I'll go and I'll just fill it in. Or maybe I grew something really poorly. Maybe I was like, oh, I'm going to do a half a bed. And so I grew 3 trays. And most of it died. And so I only have like 50. And so then I can fill in the holes that way too. So that's like one way I think of answering the question. And then the other way of answering this question of are you inside sowing any seeds could be, am I currently sowing any seeds? And the answer to that is, yeah, this week is actually going to be a big seed starting week for me. This is kind of like my window for starting some stuff to be able to plant out in kind of like September, early September, to get it established for next year. So my plans for this week is I'm gonna be starting like a bunch of perennials. I want to be starting lemon balm. I want to be starting catnip. I want to be starting a bunch of fama, scabiosa. I'm basically gonna go through my seeds and I'm gonna see what I have on hand that I want more of for perennials, and do a big seed starting round. And then there's some stuff that I still need to start for the farm that'll direct seed. So things like I need to get some sunflowers into the ground. I still haven't planted any amaranth, which like makes me question my self-identity. But so, there's a few more fall successions that I'm going to be planting this week too. All right, let's see, back. Do you think the slowdown in sales is from people less interested in flowers or increase in people selling flowers or other reasons? Do you regret stopping your veggies? So I definitely don't regret stopping veggies, because the reason why we stopped growing the veggies is what I was talking about how, look at your numbers, like, are you making money? on, like, you know, when I was talking about the anemones and the ranunculus, and am I making a profit? Am I covering the labor? And what we found out when we crunched the numbers after having done veggies for 3 years, so having 3 years worth of data to spread across, I discovered that we were losing money. So we weren't working for $0. Like, we were, like, you know, giving money away by growing most of the veggie crops that we were growing. And part of that was that the sales weren't there. We had a lot of stuff that just wasn't selling, and part of it was that the labor to the price of some of our crops, the balance just wasn't there. So because I finally had numbers and I went and I crunched them, and I was like, well, I'm not going to work for free. Right? I was like, if I'm gonna grow food for free, I'm gonna give it to the food bank. I'm not gonna take it down. I'm not gonna try to sell it and have people complain that my food is too expensive. So I was like, we're only growing things that I know we can make money at. And there was 3 things that we were making money at. We were making money at flowers, we were making money at carrots, and we were making money at salad mix. And so last year the plan was we were gonna grow flowers, carrots, and salad mix. And then the spring we had crop failures on the salad mix in the spring, and the carrots had really poor germination. And then we've had carrot rust fly issues, so pest issues. So it was making the carrots really difficult, and the flowers were just selling like crazy. So we were like, well, you know what? Let's just focus on the flowers. We can always change things. As for why people aren't buying flowers, I think there's a chance that there is some economic. That was coming in. I think there is some economic stuff going on there. Like interest rates going up so much. Things are getting more expensive. So I think that plays into the fact that maybe people only have enough money to buy a bouquet once a month instead of twice a month, and so that means we're selling half as much at the farmers market. Maybe it's just that because of the really bad weather, the crop mix that we had wasn't as desirable, because like I said, we're going to keep selling at the farmers market, so we can get more data, we can see. Right? If the beginning of our season, oh, Bo, you're too cute, but you wreck everything. If the beginning of our season at the market is really bad, but then all of a sudden things, just get crazy, who knows? Who knows, why people aren't coming to the farmer's market? It's tricky because there's so many different factors, right? So we need more data to figure it out. But no matter what, the roadside stand is still doing well. And we also are like a very major tourist destination, and there's a lot of money in Kelowna. So even if we start to be like, maybe these grab and go bouquets aren't the way to do it. If we build towards florists, there's always going to be weddings. There's always going to be events. And if we can provide flowers for florists for that, then perfect. We can always go back to growing veggies if we want. I was like, I don't know, maybe we should put, the roadside stand is great, right? We can put whatever we want in the roadside stand as long as it sells. And I was like, I don't know, maybe we want to try some strawberries. Maybe we want to, investigate more cash crop type things like the flowers. Something where, we can work really hard for a month. Make a bunch of money. Instead of the veggies. The veggies are tricky because it's very constant and it's a lot. And if you can't get the numbers to match the labor, it can be hard to get the balance. So we'll see. We have no plans to stop farming anytime soon. But we need to figure out how to farm profitably. Thanks so much, Jennifer, the little cheerleader. I really like when people do the super chats and the stickers they use. The stickers are very entertaining to me. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Flower and Fire. The sticker is a little rhino spinning in a chair. These are very entertaining. Oh, here's a question. Do you ever worry that someone will take your money box in the roadside stand? So no, because before we had the money box, we just had a jar of money, and on like the last year on Mother's Day, we like loaded up the roadside stand and then went off to the market, and then we came back and the money jar was like overflowing with like hundreds of dollars. It was like money flying everywhere in the stand. And if anyone was ever going to steal, that would have been the day. And everyone just kept stuffing money back into it. So we're not super worried. We do empty, like, if we're gonna film opening up the cash for the video, like we'll film it on a day, like on a Saturday, and like we've been away from the stand, and then we know it's gonna visually look good to open it up and have a bunch of money fall out. We kind of film it when we know that we've had a lot of sales, but we try to go and empty it like throughout the day. We will like pop in midday. So normally it's not like there's like hundreds of dollars in the box normally. We are emptying it regularly, and it's mounted on the wall. So someone could try to steal it, but it would be hard. I don't like to talk about it in the videos because it feels like it's like tempting fate, but the thing that the thing that I'm the most worried about is someone stealing our air conditioner. The air conditioner is worth it's a big air conditioner, so it has value, and we'd have to replace it if it got stolen. So I would be sad. And then the absolute most expensive thing that could happen to the roadside stand is if someone was to vandalize the door. The door is worth $400, and like I said, we're not super like good at construction and things like that, so we probably also have to like pay someone to help us put it in. So if the door got kicked in, it would cost like $500 just for the door, let alone damage to the stand. So the thing I honestly worry about the most is the stand itself. I'm more worried about have a car accident and like a car driving into the stand, because that would cost us thousands of dollars. Whereas if someone was to break into the money box, it'd be like, $60 type thing. We're not gonna, it's not gonna make or break the farm. But everyone's really honest. Like we have, we don't have a ton of theft. And I'm also like, if someone needs to steal a bouquet, I'm like, well, they need it more than I do. They need it more than my compost does, so they're welcome to it. Okay, let's see, someone here. Something, Johnny's new cut flower violas. Okay, so I'm assuming someone's asking if I've seen those. So violas, I've seen them. Florette did a whole thing where she was experimenting with them. So I've seen stuff about them for like a bunch of years. But honestly, I said this at the beginning of the video, and I've kind of popped back to it. But my goal is to simplify things, right? And this is the recurring theme in all the answers to these questions. Because the farm is a business, what I really need to consider is how I spend my time, because my time has to have a dollar value attached to it, so that I can build the business to be profitable. I can't be disregarding the time that I spend on the farm. I need to make sure that my time is covered so that the farm can continue to, function as a proper business and continue to go on. So because of that, what I'm really working on moving forward is to find things that, reduce that time. And so, you know, we're working on streamlining and simplifying all the flowers that we grow on the farm. You know, and from the beginning, one of the ways that we did that was we were very focused on things that can handle our heat, things that can handle full sun because we're full sun, things that can handle drought conditions because, you know, we're a desert. Even though we irrigate, you know, basically the amount I irrigate is the equivalent of like drought for a lot of other places. Because I'm very focused on like the streamlining of stuff, I'm getting less and less strict in the list of things that I'll experiment with. But from early, this is to answer the viola's question, even though there are some like incredible, really, really beautiful violas that I've seen people using, they would never be anything that I would grow because they are more for like specialty work. They're more like they would not be able to handle being inside of a market bouquet. You know, they would just wilt and die. They're very short. They're, you know, people are growing these and they're looking incredible when they're doing like wedding work and event work. And the way the numbers work on that is a different balance, right? Because how you price out a flower in a $200 bridal bouquet is very different from how you price out a flower in a $20 market bouquet. So there's a lot of stuff that like I'm never going to experiment with because it's just, I already know it's going to be fussy. You know, like I've been tempted to try sweet peas, but then I'm like, why? Like sweet peas are never going to be good in a market bouquet. You don't want to do event work. Why would you grow these event work flowers? You know, and even like my kind of thinking, even though I am talking about selling florists and, you know, florists do want these event work flowers, what I would rather do than sell like 10 of something that's like really special, like long stem violas. I'd rather grow just basic stuff that, you know, florists are looking to buy 100 of and grow 1,000 of them. So I can sell a bucket to 10 florists every single week, even if the price that I can charge, you know, if I'm growing 1,000 of something and easily selling it every week at volume, if I'm making only 50 cents a stem on it, that's $500. You know, but it means, but because I'm doing it at volume, I have ways of like going out and quickly doing it. I can still be profitable with those things, whereas the labor to fuss and to primp around with just a few pieces for me and for my system isn't going to be profitable because I wouldn't be able to get to the $500 sale. So even if a viola was going to sell at wholesale for $5, you know, I'd still have to sell 100 of them, and it's a specialty thing. And if I'm not going to get, you know, that many sales, then it's like, you know, I don't know. But yeah, so they're beautiful and I love them, but they're not for me. Is amaranth an insect magnet? Not for me. I find it's super simple. But it all depends on the specific pest pressure that you have. Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. Let's see. I had a great time at members chat last week. Thank you for the impromptu tour. Serina is beautiful, but not the smoke. Yeah, we've been so lucky with smoke this year. We've it's like I can't believe that like we aren't surrounded by forest fires this year. It's crazy with how hot it's been. I know that like a lot of the rest of Canada hasn't been lucky this year, and you know, definitely I can empathize because I know what it's like to be in the smoke. But you know, I've been trying to enjoy the smoke free as much as possible because I know it's only going to be so long. And for anyone who's wondering, so the channel has like a membership program, and then you get the fun little emojis beside your name. And from going forward, our plan is the first Monday of the month is going to be the live video that's only for members. And so it's a private video that only people in the membership program can access. It's fun because it's a small group of us. So let's see. Kelly, lots of excellent questions tonight. Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you for you guys are always so generous. We feel very much appreciated by everyone who's in the membership program. Just the fact that you want to kind of give your support to the channel, but then to have you guys like supporting even more in the chat, we thank you. Did the ranunculus corms that you have harvested and dried grow successfully the following season? Yes. Because the first year ones that I got and I planted out, they did really good. And then I still haven't planted out the ones from last year. So the very first year, which was like 2 years ago now, I planted those the following year and they were great. The reason why you maybe don't want to save ranunculus corms is they can get diseases, and once they're diseased, like with viruses, they're in the corm too. And so replacing your corms is making sure that you have disease-free plants. Because if they're diseased, they're a lot of work to grow out to then not get any blooms, and they cannot bloom from being diseased. So for me, I feel confident growing them out for like 2 years, maybe 3. Maybe like third year is like when you're like, okay, they can overwinter. If they come, they come. If not, like whatever, maybe I don't want to like pre-sprout them. But I'm really excited, and like I want to do this week. I need to get organized. I need to make it happen. But I want to try fall ranunculus. So I saved my corms that I dug out from last year because I bought so many that I wasn't going to plant them out for the spring. But I saved them for now because what I really want to do is I want to pre-sprout some, grow them under lights in the air conditioning because they need cool conditions. So I'll grow them inside my building under lights until September, and then I'll plant them out into a greenhouse tunnel so that in hopes that like they will bloom. They'll bloom in October when they're frost protected by the tunnel. No heat, but maybe I'll be able to get a second flush. So, the corms are expensive. The corms are like $1 when you buy the new ones. So I think there's a really good chance I'll get zero flowers from this. But I think it would be fun to do the experiment. And so, the saved corms are a great way to do experiments and risks. Let's see. How did you dig up your wild yarrow and not get weeds? So the way I have the white yarrow, which is a wild yarrow in our garden, is the spot that is where the yarrow grows was our vegetable garden a couple of years ago. And so Ian came and he just like, he tilled like what was the grass. And then we planted the garden, and then the weeds, like, when weeds grew, I weeded, but it ended up that a bunch of the yarrow that was in the lawn, when Ian tilled it, it didn't kill it. It grew back again. And so I had like one section, because in my lawn, there's patches of yarrow, and I really like it as like a lawn substitute because it's actually soft and low growing, and if you mow it, the flower stems never come up, so it never gets like sharp spikes. Yeah, so the patch basically where the yarrow had been ended up being in the center of the garden, and I had like spring crops that were there. So when the spring crops finished, I had this whole big circle of yarrow, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll just let it grow. And so then it grew into like a really healthy patch of yarrow. And then the following year we planted the yarrow in, we took out that garden, turned that garden into the perennial garden where we put down the fabric and everything. And as I was planting the yarrow, we were coming up to the spot where there was all the yarrow that had grown the year before, and I just dug it out and I ripped it apart into tiny little pieces and then planted it. But we get weeds in the perennials, right? So we do have to actively weed the perennials, even though it's on the fabric, and even though the plants have filled in. Once or twice a year, around the holes in the fabric, we have to go and we have to weed everything out. So it's not weed free. Someone's asking how many cats do we currently have? So we currently have 5 cats, including the 2 new kittens. Have you looked into electroculture? And I've actually never heard of that. That's a new one for me. Someone's asking, is Fatty still around? Fatty passed away last fall. He was elderly, and as his name implied, he hadn't necessarily lived the healthiest life. So it wasn't too much of a surprise. In the next video, we're gonna do a thing where we're gonna talk about the fact that Fatty's passed, do a little memorial thing, and show the
Look at our little
kittens.
presents.
I know these kittens are cute. Would it make money sense for Nelly to make a 5100 dried wreath to sell on Etsy with the leftover flowers? Maybe that's supposed to be $100 dried wreath. I'm like, is this a new tax structure? Like Nelly's gonna start a new business. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna make a ton of Christmas ornaments. This is the plan. We're gonna make a lot of Christmas ornaments because Christmas ornaments ship really well, and there's no problem for shipping them across the border. If we were to make wreaths, I don't think that we could legally ship them to the States. So we would be limiting
Shipping them?
Yeah, the Christmas ornaments. We're gonna make them and we're gonna ship them.
Why?
Well, so everyone can buy them, right? So we can sell
Where
them
are you shipping them
to anyone who wants to buy them and pay for shipping.
to?
And then you can pack up the boxes and stick all the packing stickers on them.
You're gonna buy some pack stickers?
I'm gonna buy a labeler. We're going all out. Anyways, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Spend more money
Thousands.
than you're gonna make.
Yes, I'm gonna spend all of my money on a labeler so that we can do it again next year and make money.
You're gonna spend
Multi-year
more money
profit.
than you're gonna make.
The wreaths, they're just really tricky for shipping. And then the other thing is they're this big, right? So a box that big is expensive.
Big ones.
Yeah, but then so I don't know. I'm not at this point committing to making wreaths with dried flowers. And then I've not been wanting to make wreaths with dried flowers for the market, because there's people down at the market who make $40 dried flower wreaths.
So we take it.
Okay, Leah, you're being disruptive. And so, basically a wreath, if I was going to take my $20 bouquets and put the amount of $20 bouquets I need to make a wreath, plus then also the labor, right? Like wreaths take a lot of labor, and the dried flowers aren't super easy to work with. It'd be like $200 worth of dried flowers. So I've been reluctant to do dried flower wreaths as anything other than gifts and for myself, because it's just hard to meet the price point, and I don't want the hassle of trying to figure out shipping and everything for it. But yeah, me and Nelly, so we've been talking because Nelly loves the dried flowers. Because I've known Nelly for more than just when she's been working here. And so I've given her dried flowers before, and she's made she really likes, she has a lot of crafts that she's done with them and different projects. And so she's like, oh, what about this? She's like, I saw this idea. So, we're hashing out ideas of different stuff that we can make. I'm like, Nelly's like, oh, what about this? It's really beautiful. And I'm like, no, labor. And she's like, ideas. So we're mind melding to find, the best solution together. But yeah, we're gonna be doing some stuff with the dried flowers, right? Because we're basically gonna try to do a winter season, and then like I said earlier,
Me too. Cards.
Yep, I know. Well, you got to get working on it. Yeah, we're also probably gonna do like a greenery, like a Christmas greenery. Okay. We're gonna do a Christmas greenery thing. Okay, it's 2 hours, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna get. Oh, I did it! I got to the end of the chat. Okay, I answered all the questions that were in capitals. Okay, there's one. Well, I'm gonna answer this question. This is the last question, then I gotta go because I said I was gonna go a half an hour ago. Okay, did you grow lilies in crates this year? Do you grow as annuals? Okay, so in the past, we did grow lilies in crates. So the trick for lilies in crates is basically what we're doing this year with our glads. You have them in the fridge, and then because they're in the fridge, they're dormant. And then when you pull them out of the fridge and you pot them up, then they start growing, and so you can time them to have a succession of lilies by just steadily pulling out lilies, bit by bit by bit. But so I'm distracted. So the year before, I tried it a little bit. Or in year 3, I tried a little bit of doing the successioned lilies in crates, and it worked really well. And so then last year, I was like, let's do it. Like, let's go for it. We'll have lilies every single week. And I bought a bunch of lilies, and I had them in my fridge. And then things got so crazy that I wasn't able to keep up with it. And so I had like a fridge full of lilies that never got planted. And so they went bad. And I wasn't planting them in crates last year. I planted them just into the ground. So in farm tours, I have like 2 permanent beds of lilies, but then I have lilies kind of scattered in small clusters throughout the farm, and that is the lilies that last year I did end up being able to succession plant. I did end up being able to succession plant before I lost track of everything and just got really overwhelmed by how much we were doing with the flowers on the farm. And so because I knew that I just got overwhelmed with it, I was like, you know what? I don't need to do that again. Lily bulbs are, like, they are a bit of an investment. And I didn't get my order in time, so I didn't have a bunch of them anyways. And and you know what? I didn't even order anything for spring from Van Noort. I didn't order any spring perennials at all, so I didn't have anything coming. So I was like, you know what? We're just not going to do it this year. And so all the lilies that I have blooming this year are lilies that are just perennialized from having planted them in these different ways over the past years. And I'm pretty happy with it. I don't necessarily think I need to have lilies every single week, right? I think that one of the things that's so great about the bouquets. Leah, okay, go talk to Daddy. One of the things that's so great about the bouquets that we make, one of the things that's kind of fun about the system that we have on the farm is the fact that it's always changing. It's always what's in season. And so even though I can have lilies always in season, it's more in tune with the bouquets changing and evolving and flowing to have lilies in their time, right? To have lilies in the moment when they are in season, and then have them fade out and have them be a treat, right? Because one of the things that I've noticed, and like I know I'm spending a bit of time talking about this, even though I need to go, but I've been thinking about this week because we're coming up on 3 weeks now of having lilies available. And in the first week that we had lilies, they sold like really, really strong. Like people are really excited about them. And then this last week, it was mostly lilies, but I made sure to send down sunflower bouquets, and then I also had another like mixed bouquet so that I had something more than just lilies. And in seeing what came back from the market, the other things sold out and a lot of the lilies came back. So, I think that having them every week makes them a little bit less of a treat, right? Like it's exciting the first time, but they start to look kind of like standard, like to have them every single week. And I'd rather stick to something looking with more of like the wildflower, cottage flower design of having in-season flowers. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll do in crate lilies again in the future, but I really like the in crate glads. And the one thing that's nice about the glads is the bulbs are a lot cheaper than the lilies. The lilies are kind of like 50 cents. I wish if I could get them for 50 cents, I'd do them. But they're more like 75 cents, $1, $1.50. So it's more of a risk. It's more of an investment than the glads that, I can kind of get for, 20, 30 cents. So, I'm more happy to experiment with having a few glads throughout the season. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe things will change. Maybe I'll start selling to florists and they'll be like, Serina, we want to buy lilies from you, and we're willing to pay you $4 wholesale. I'll be like, what? Oh yeah, you can definitely make money on them at $1 if you're gonna give me $4 for them and buy them all, and I don't have them going to waste. But yeah, okay, I have to go. It's crashing. It knows I have to go. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm always amazed at how many of you guys come and hang out and, enjoy these videos. I know that they're like getting pretty niche as the more years we kind of get in. It's kind of more about business, more about, very specific to flower farming. But it's fun that I get an opportunity to talk about these things that I think about all day, every day when I'm out there on the farm. I really appreciate you guys. Help me. Talking through this stuff with you guys actually helps me to process the information better. And without you guys joining me and in enjoying these live videos enough that I'm allowed to keep doing them, I definitely don't think I would have as much of an understanding about what we're doing on the farm. So thank you. I really appreciate the time that we get to spend together. And so we're gonna try to get like making a really big bouquet video out and done quickly, probably Wednesday, and then we have the really exciting vlog that Ian talked about at the beginning. I'm pretty sure coming out on Friday. Maybe we can get it for Thursday. I don't know. As soon as we can get it out, we'll get it out. But so stay tuned for that. I know it's been a little while since we've had an edited video. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Okay, we'll see you next time.